Hi there, I'm Isanali Shaw, and you're watching me on YouTube and Facebook Live. Today we are going to talk about spirituality as knowledge or spiritual awakening and how spiritual knowledge could heal the world. And when we talk about spirituality, spirituality has various connotations. It could be taken in the religious sense or non-religious sense, and we will discuss it both. And now the question is why so many experts and intellectuals are drawn towards are drawn towards spirituality. Uh, if spirituality is the solution, then how it is going to solve uh, the problems of the global economy, technological issues, and the issues people are having under the current circumstances. To discuss this topic, my guest is Edward Konowicz. He has joined us from Virginia, United States. Hi,
Hi,
Ed.
everybody. This is
How
a
are you
very
doing?
deep topic. I'm doing pretty good. How's the weather? Did you get any rain yet?
No, not rain yet. Hopefully, I will get it in the next few days, but we desperately need rain because the crops are dying almost.
Yeah, that's pretty sad.
Mhm.
We still have rain. I just went outside to throw out some
Mhm.
garbage, and the the ground was muddy. We've had
Mhm.
rain for over a week and a half. It just seems some places get a lot of rain and other places don't get any.
Yes, we have been having drought for the past 2 months. Uh, our crops desperately needs rain. Or this is the only way to feed. It is the crops are going to feed the next year, the whole next year. So rains are very important.
Yes.
So
Okay, with this topic, I want to kind of invert it. This
okay,
is an
how you?
interesting thing. A
Uh,
lot of times when you invert something, you see the
mhm,
truth.
mhm,
For example, when you have a
mhm,
cup,
mhm,
we think about the cup, how much it weighs, but it's not
mhm,
the cup that's important, it's the space inside of it that we use to put the liquid.
mhm,
It's just like the house, the wall helps, but if there wasn't room between the walls, the house
mhm,
wouldn't do any good.
mhm.
So, what is truth? Truth is the
Okay.
absence of lies.
Mhm.
Repeat that. Truth is the
Is the
absence of
absence of
lies.
lies. Mhm,
And basically, how people are being crippled and damaged is with lies,
mhm,
which is the so called devil, great Satan, Archon, whatever you want to call it, the evil that controls the world
mhm,
is based on lying, deceit.
mhm.
And we
When
and
and let me say this, when we talk about the truth, then there are many versions of truth. So what versions of truth, what version of the truth you want to follow? So for
you don't have
instance,
to worry about that. If you have
okay.
a version of the truth, that's not a
Mhm,
problem. The
mhm.
problem is if you have a version of the lie.
Okay, it's very interesting.
So basically, goodness is freedom. You can do a lot.
Mhm,
Your freedom
mhm,
gets reduced by lies.
mhm,
So the problem is detecting what is dishonest.
mhm,
That's and in the modern world, we don't say lies, we say propaganda.
mhm,
Governments and corporations, they they have propaganda. Sometimes we call that advertisements,
mhm,
commercials.
mhm,
And the problem is when we're not receiving truth. When you receive truth, as long as you're not trying to harm someone, you got a lot of freedom. So what
mhm,
version of the truth really doesn't matter
mhm,
if you're not doing any harm.
mhm.
You
On the
can
other
you can
hand,
accept.
okay, you said version of truth, and In today's world, we call it propaganda. We don't call it we don't call it the lies. We don't call it lies. On the other hand, if you speak against the the tyranny, then you will be labeled as conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, which is a lie.
Yes,
It's not a theory. People
yes.
plan
Mhm,
and they plan in secret and they wage
mhm,
wars. They
mhm,
bomb in secret. It's not like the
mhm,
United States calls up Syria and says, "Hey, I'm
mhm,
going to bomb you." They do it in
mhm,
secret. They
mhm,
they they plan their attacks in secret. So of course, people plan in secret. That's
mhm,
what is a conspiracy. And
mhm,
so the propaganda denies truth, and
mhm,
the truth is a lot of evil, which is harm, is done by planning and secrecy,
mhm. And
particularly
the
war.
evil and the evil is also controlling the world.
Yes, by with lies,
Yes.
with lies and
So.
intimidation. If you don't
Mhm,
believe the lie, we're going to attack you.
mhm,
So if you speak the truth,
mhm,
which is the truth is pointing to the lie.
mhm,
So if you point to the lie, you could be attacked because people are told or
mhm,
forced to defend what is not true.
mhm,
And so the issue is what is spirituality is knowledge. It's
mhm,
having enough knowledge to be able to point out the dishonesty or what's incorrect.
mhm. So
And
I think you are now giving uh, a unique perspective to spirituality. On the other hand, spirituality has never been taken into this sense before.
no, the spirituality, as people see it, is part of the
Mhm,
empire. It was
mhm,
Emperor Constantine that
mhm,
created Christianity, King
mhm,
James.
mhm,
It was Moses, who was a general, who created large beginnings of Judaism.
mhm,
Muhammad, who was a conqueror, created Islam.
mhm,
So we see conquerors and empire builders create religion,
mhm,
and so they don't get the truth
mhm,
because the empire is based on lies. And
mhm,
that's always been true.
mhm,
It's always and I think one of the great prophets for was Jesus or Yeshua ben David or whatever his name was in history. He
mhm,
says, he's in the desert and he says the so called devil offers him the rulership of the world
mhm,
if he worships the devil, which is lies.
mhm,
And Yeshua or Isa, whatever name is appropriate, Jesus, Isa, whatever, said, no, I'm not going along with your lies.
mhm,
So people believe in lies. That's what evil is, lies.
mhm,
Truth is freedom. There is not
mhm,
one version of truth. So
mhm,
people say, what's the version of truth you believe in? No, if you're not harming people and you got a guess about how the universe operates,
mhm,
that's fine. But to speak the truth, which is, well, truth has many versions,
mhm,
you're not allowed to do that. You're
mhm,
supposed to repeat what someone told you is the truth.
mhm,
And I think the difference between the truth and a lie has to be repeated. You don't have
mhm,
to repeat the truth. The truth stands on its own. You don't have to
mhm,
tell people the truth,
mhm.
but a lie you
So,
have to constantly repeat.
so in other words, the world we are living in today, then if we look at from this perspective, then we can see so many lies. Just like look at the social in the world of social media, the community standards: do this, don't do this, and follow this, don't follow this. So all of these things that we are told repetitively Could they fall in the category of lies?
Yes, well, I mean, we see it in Facebook.
Mm-hmm,
Facebook puts a fact checker on that the
mm-hmm,
COVID vaccines have been thoroughly tested and are safe. Well, they
mm-hmm,
can't be thoroughly tested. You don't know the
mm-hmm,
side effects 2 years later, 3 years
mm-hmm,
later. So the
mm-hmm,
fact checker itself is a lie.
mm-hmm,
The vaccines were not thoroughly tested. To be
mm-hmm,
thoroughly tested requires years, animal testing, observation of side effects after years. So, no, they
mm-hmm,
weren't thoroughly tested.
mm-hmm,
So, the oppression or tyranny is to force people to repeat the lie. So, you don't have to be as concerned with truth. Truth isn't going to harm you, a
mm-hmm,
lie will.
mm-hmm,
If the vaccine is dangerous for some people and they're dying,
mm-hmm,
it's called coincidental. Well, the lie that it's safe and you take it,
mm-hmm,
that's that can kill you. The lie can
mm-hmm,
kill you.
mm-hmm,
So yeah, lies are very dangerous.
mm-hmm,
So what we have to be concerned with is studying enough science that we know enough why the vaccine was not thoroughly tested, that we know enough why, for example, the Big Bang theory is not the only
mm-hmm,
theory. And I want
mm-hmm,
to prove this. So there's an easy way to prove what I'm saying, which is
mm-hmm,
present overwhelming evidence. And
mm-hmm,
most people will admit the Roman Empire and its globalization was cruel and barbaric, whether you look
mm-hmm,
at feeding people the lions and tigers in the
mm-hmm,
Colosseum or the slaughter, absolute destruction of whole cities like Carthage,
mm-hmm,
um, the um, battles, the wars that were constant, the civil wars, you the child molestation at the top. And what did
yes.
the empire change itself into? It changed itself into a religion.
Mm-hmm.
The Roman Empire became the Roman Catholic
The
Church,
Catholic Church.
and
Mm-hmm,
it was more effective at telling lies,
mm-hmm,
which is what people buy is lies.
mm-hmm,
So you force people to believe a lie is the truth, and then you can conquer them because their spiritual being is weakened by a lie,
mm-hmm,
which is your soul is your mind.
mm-hmm. You have to
And if you
weak them. You have to weak them psychologically in order to
yeah,
conquer them.
and
Mm-hmm,
weak them morally, break up their families,
mm-hmm,
um, do an economic blockade.
mm-hmm,
So there's a lot to it. But I mentioned the Vatican because I have a website up. And I'm going to read some of the names. People think, oh, Rome, the Roman
mm-hmm,
Catholic Church is about religion. No, the
mm-hmm,
core of the Roman Catholic Church
mm-hmm,
is university knowledge.
mm-hmm.
Let me just read this because it's too much for me to memorize.
Okay.
And this is from the Vatican, which is
Mm-hmm,
the center of the Roman Empire, which is the Roman Catholic Church. The
mm-hmm.
Pontifical Academy of Sciences.
Okay.
The Pontifical,
Okay.
this is,
Just hang on a second. If you're watching me live, share it on your wall, share it on your profile, so more people could join us. Okay. Continue, Ed.
okay, I'll paste the link,
Okay.
which is Wikipedia. You can go to Wikipedia, look
Mm-hmm,
up the Pontifical Academy of Sciences.
okay.
The Pontifical Academy of Sciences is a scientific academy of Vatican City,
Mm-hmm,
established in 1936.
mm-hmm,
And there was earlier ones.
mm-hmm,
The academy had its origins in the Academy Pontifical de Novi Lince, the new Linces founded in 1847. And
mm-hmm,
before that, there was the Academy de Linces, I don't know what Linces is,
mm-hmm,
established in Rome in 1603.
mm-hmm,
And then even earlier, we have as early as before that We had centers of learning in the Vatican, of course, the Vatican Library. But this is
Mm-hmm.
critical.
Mm-hmm.
There are probably more Nobel Prize winners associated with the Vatican Academy than any other institution in the world. Let me read some of the Nobel Prize winners.
Mm-hmm.
Ernest Rutherford, chemistry, Nobel Prize 1908.
Mm-hmm.
Marconi, physics 1909. Planck, physics 1918. Niels Bohr, physics 1922. Werner Heisenberg, physics 1932. Paul Dirac, 1933. Erwin Schrödinger, physics 1933. Otto Hahn, chemistry 1944. Sir Alexander Fleming, physiology 1945. Charles Towns, that's with the laser, physics 1964. Um, Let me see, we got some other famous names here. John C. Polanyi, chemistry 1986. And I could go on. I only read about 10% of the names, some of the more famous ones. But the point is, the Nobel Prizes in physics are associated with the Vatican City. Now, what that could imply, and it implies it, I can't prove this, that how we look at the world in terms of chemistry, in terms of physics, and in terms of physiology may be propaganda created by Rome. You know, we assume all these Nobel Prize winners are independent scientists, but they're not independent. They belong to the Pontifical Academy of Sciences controlled by the Vatican.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what we hear as the truth, which is the sciences, may not be the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Because
So,
what is a religion doing
mhm,
controlling the Nobel Prize winners?
mhm. So the question is, if a majority of scientists belong to the Vatican Society and Vatican institutions, so does this mean that the knowledge or the inventions are manipulated?
Well, it implies that. It
Yeah.
definitely implies that. Now, of course, you're in speculation there,
Mhm,
but you have to ask this question: why
mhm.
are these dozens of Nobel Prize winners in sciences? Why are they
Belong to
part of
the.
the Pontifical Academy of a religion?
Mhm,
And if we look at great conquerors, like I like to refer to the original globalists as Alexander the Great,
mhm,
who was an excellent engineer who founded universities. They were called libraries, but they really were universities because he was
mhm.
controlling, the
The
Greeks were
knowledge.
controlling what we see as truth.
Mhm,
So the sciences have been a major part of the mind control of the empires.
mhm,
I mean, we can't deny that Rome was an empire. And I don't
mhm,
think you can deny that the Roman Catholic Church, which then used Spanish mercenaries, Portuguese mercenaries, Italian mercenaries, French, conquered much
mhm.
of the world.
Yes.
Much of imperialism and globalism was under Spain, Portugal, France,
England.
England. But England was broke with the Catholic Church and established a separate church, like Russia did. But we need to see England, which is a separate church, the Anglican Church. They have control of their scientists, the British Academy, Royal Academy of Sciences. So we need to see through this illusion that the sciences are pure and that they're truthful. They're not. There's lies in science, and we saw this particularly in psychiatry. How would people ever lobotomized or given insulin shock, tortured as treatment? I mean, this is crazy. Women were, for 200 years or more, diagnosed as hysterics, claiming that their inappropriate emotions or sexuality was the result of an overactive uterus, and they had a hysterectomy as the solution. And then in 1980, it was seen as ridiculous. We can't lie about this anymore. It's too big of a lie. So that lie in science called hysteria, diagnosis of hysteria, was slowly put aside and hidden because it would affect the whole medical profession. It became clear that much of the medical profession is based on lies. So truth is to find the lies. It requires knowledge, and that's why these scientists are paid and controlled by like the Vatican, because you want to restrict knowledge because knowledge in the hands of a spiritual person, that spiritual person can explain the lie to you. And frequently those in power tell you direct lies. For example, the United States is trying to start a world war. Um, Trump did that with Iran, and now um, Biden is trying to do that with Syria. And he says these bombings in Syria were a defensive action. What do you mean a defensive action? Defensive action to an attack in Iraq. Well, if they bombed where they were attacked from in Iraq, that would be a defensive action. But they actually tell you this so you know it's not true. The so-called devil has to cue you in to he's telling you a lie. So they tell you a contradiction immediately, that this was a self-defensive action taken from an
Mm-hmm.
action in Iraq. So something went on where people were killed in Iraq. And what did the Biden administration do? They bombed people in Syria. And that makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now the claim is, well, it was Iranian backed militias. Well, then, if it's Iranian backed militias, wouldn't you attack Iran? I'm not
Mm-hmm.
promoting that. I'm just saying what is evil lies and will lie right to your face. For
Mm-hmm.
example, with the COVID vaccine, you're still contagious, you still can get it.
Mm-hmm.
You may have serious reactions from it. And the so called only advantage is if you get it, it's supposedly not as bad. But many of the people who died after getting the vaccine were diagnosed as dying from COVID 19, even though they weren't testing positive beforehand, which means implies the vaccine caused more vulnerability. They didn't have easier symptoms, they had
Mm-hmm.
worse symptoms. So they're
Mm-hmm.
giving you the information but summarizing it wrong. They're
Mm-hmm.
giving you the information of the contradictions of the vaccine, but summarizing it wrong. And for some reason, evil has to inform you of the contradiction. But then people just believe the summary, the propaganda. They don't look at the contradictions. And this is what's so hard. People think spirituality is praying,
Mm-hmm.
fasting, eating correctly, going to church or mosque or temple. People think being spiritual
It
is
means religious.
following a religious ritual.
Mm.
It could be a
Organized
holiday.
religion. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They think being spiritual is doing a
Mm-hmm.
custom. You
Mm-hmm.
go to this place, you do this pilgrimage. No, being spiritual is to be able to point out the lies and free people from the lies.
Mm-hmm.
And what would be more spiritual than stopping a war where women and children and civilians are killed?
Mm-hmm.
What would be more spiritual than stopping bombings where people are losing their houses and homes? So
Mhm,
spirituality isn't, oh, I'm going to go to this building and pray.
mhm,
Spirituality is reducing suffering. How do
mhm.
people not understand that? It's
Uh,
not,
as you you have said it earlier that spirituality is knowing the truth and differentiating with lies.
well, right. It's more, no one really knows how the universe was created.
Yes.
No one really was there. I
Yes.
don't know anyone that was there
Mhm.
even 200 years ago.
Yes.
Uh, so there's guesses.
Mhm.
So I give you my guesses.
Mhm.
I'm not idolatrous. I don't say, oh, I got this from God. I don't say I got this from reading a book from God. I'm not idolatrous. I make my guesses.
Mhm.
And my guess is what most of truth is uncovering the lies so that
Mhm.
people are not enslaved and damaged by the lies, particularly damaged by war, which is usually based on lies. People have
Mhm.
said, this is a quote, the
Mhm.
first victim of war is truth,
Mhm.
because people lie to get normal people killing each other. These are family people, sons and daughters of regular people who have farms, who work jobs, who have grandchildren, who have families, and then their leaders try to convince them to kill each other
Based on the organized belief.
based on organized beliefs, based on propaganda. The rulers
Mhm.
of the world for over hundreds of years have been lying to people to get them to kill each other. That happened with Alexander the Great. After
Mhm.
about, I forget, it was like 8 or 10 years of war,
Mhm.
Alexander the
Yes.
Great troops said, what are we going to be doing? Killing people the
Mhm.
rest of our lives?
Mhm.
When is this
Yeah,
going
I
to
think
stop?
yes. I think that's what happened in India when he was in India. That's how he got mad and started killing his own army.
Yes.
Mhm.
He hit by an arrow too, because his
Mhm.
soldiers would not just walk up the ladders on the wall and be killed. So he went
Mhm.
up and was almost killed
Mhm.
because he wanted them to die for war.
Mhm. Yes.
And they said, well, when's this going to stop? Then on his
Mhm.
way back, he took them through a desert where something like half of them died.
Mhm.
He
Mhm.
was crazy.
Yes.
He just wanted war and war and war. And why he's called Alexander the Great, he never lost a war. He
Mhm.
always won, but he died in his early 30s and his empire fell apart.
Mhm.
So he wasn't really great. He's admired because
Mhm.
the real religion of the upper class is war. You can't be upper class in the world
Mhm.
unless you support war. The religion of the world is war, which is killing people. And that's the truth. The religion of
Mhm.
the upper class of the world is war. And if you
Mhm.
go against war, they want to kill you.
Mhm.
And if you're not willing to kill women and children, you're seen as bad.
Mhm.
And that's what's going on now is there's an attempt to start a world war. It's a historical cycle, an economic
Mhm.
blockade, disease, police state, and then
Mhm.
war, just like what Germany did.
Mhm. I think if we look at in today's world, then the rulers of the world in today nowadays they have got now many tools. It could be economic blockades. It could be loss of employment. It could be vaccination. It could be taking away your children, breaking up families. It could be psychological or blame it psychologically unfit, or it could be labeled as conspiracy theories, or it could be labeled as extremist. Or there are many ways uh, to stop a person in today's world.
Now, there's many ways to damage human beings, but
Yes.
war, if you want to kill billions of people, then
Hmm.
you need a nuclear war.
Hmm.
And I think those in power are trying to start a war between the United States and Russia in order to use nuclear weapons to kill billions of people.
Hmm.
And I think if we're aware of that, that's why I say it,
Hmm.
I think we stop it. If
Hmm.
we are aware that our leaders are lying killers that want to start, they don't want to, they're forced. They're forced by something evil to try to start a world war.
Hmm.
And given the weapons today, both Russia and United States and other countries can
Hmm.
destroy whole cities
Yes,
and
even
kill millions of people at a time.
around about 10 countries, 10 or 15 or whatever countries have the atomic weapons. They can kill the whole world. They can destroy the whole world for centuries.
And where I think it's spiritual is,
Hmm.
I think politics has become a a
Hmm.
parasite on human beings. And I
Hmm.
think human beings without the murderers, the killers controlling our governments,
Hmm.
we would have the rise of good, intelligent people. And with the rise of good, intelligent people, people would be healthier and live longer. But
Hmm.
right now, anyone who's honest and intelligent faces
They
being
block you.
targeted. You're
They
being
are
blocked.
they yes. Whether it's on social media, in the just like the same thing happened to our friend Melody. She was taken. Uh, she was apprehended by the police, and
Yeah, she was
I
actually
think that.
attacked. The police grabbed her. She
Mhm.
um, it's it's not a long story. Basically, she was in a park with her children. A woman complained and
Mhm.
started touching her daughter, supposedly. And she
Mhm.
went over and talked to the woman. The woman was a
Mhm.
retired policewoman.
Mhm.
And this is a story I heard. And she
Mhm.
called the police, and the police came and tried to arrest Melody. Melody resisted their attempts to grab her because she says, "Am I being detained or arrested?" And the policeman had no charge. He would not say, "I'm arresting you for this or detaining you." She was thrown on the ground and beaten with black and blue
Mhm.
marks. And
Mhm.
then none of the civilians at the park were interviewed. Only
Mhm.
policemen did the report. And they're
Mhm.
threatening to put her in jail for years, claiming
Mhm.
she went to a park. This is what they're claiming, that she went to a park, attacked a woman or threatened her. The woman called the police, and then she attacked the policeman. Or do you
Mhm.
think the woman was threatening Melody and her child?
Mhm.
Woman calls the police, and now the police, just like we see in thousands of videos throughout the United States, the police
Mhm.
attack Melody without due cause, without any reasonable cause for an arrest.
Mhm.
I mean, how's a mother going to go to a park and beat up police? I mean,
Mhm.
that's crazy. Did a mother
Mhm.
go to a park to beat up police and other people, or did the police come to the park to beat her up because she's outspoken?
Mhm.
What's the likelihood?
Mhm. Yes.
But we have a police state in the United States.
Mhm.
We have a police state where police commit crimes regularly and they support each other. Because if you don't support a cop and you're a cop, you could be killed.
Yes.
But the police state, like in Nazi Germany, usually results in war because they need an
Mhm.
enemy. They can't keep claiming mothers are their enemies. These mothers want to attack policemen. I mean, how
Mhm.
ridiculous. Melody
Mhm.
goes to a park with her children, and then the police cry, "Oh, they attacked the police! They attacked the police!"
In the
I mean, that's
presence of
crazy.
children. Yes. She
That's
took her
absolutely
children.
crazy.
Yes. She took her children to beat up a cop, an
Yeah,
elderly woman. It doesn't
yeah.
make any
She
sense.
went to a park to beat up a cop. Yeah, come on.
Hmm. In the
Or
presence
did the
of your
police come
children.
to a park to beat up a woman who was outspoken against the
Mm.
crime in the United States?
Yeah.
I mean, the United States is full of crime. This
Hmm.
country is like Russia, ruled by organized crime,
Hmm.
particularly through the police, sexual trafficking, drugs.
Hmm.
And you can look online. There's so many cops, police chiefs that have
Hmm.
been convicted of sexually trafficking women, convicted of sexually
Racial,
molesting children,
hmm
convicted of being
racial,
raped, convicted of drugs. The police are the crooked ones, not mothers.
hmm
Oh, a mother going to the park. She went to the park to attack the police.
hmm
Yeah, right. I mean, this is
Yeah.
absolutely crazy. And they're threatening her with jail for years.
Hmm.
And that's where it gets spiritual. It happened to me.
Hmm.
Police arrested
Okay.
me for resisting arrest. I was in jail 3 days with no food or toilet paper. 3 days
Oh
with
my.
no food or toilet paper with
When
wounds,
when was it happening?
about 1986.
Okay.
That's
Were
quite
you
a while ago.
okay?
And they wanted me to
What?
plead. They want I said, no, you attacked me. And of
Mm-hmm,
course I got the charges dismissed eventually.
mm-hmm.
But it was a
So,
battle because they tried to break me.
so what happened? What was how you were caught? How did it start?
It started. I was young. My family was very poor
Mm-hmm,
because we already had police action against us. We had home
mm-hmm,
births, and the second home birth, the police broke down our door, took my wife and me, and we
mm-hmm,
became very poor because that hurt my business to have
mm-hmm,
that happen. So we
mm-hmm,
were very poor, and I would go to a store. I said, "Well, I'm not taking food now, but I'm going to leave my name and number. If I
mm-hmm,
have to take food, I want you to know where I live. I'll
mm-hmm,
try to pay it back, but my
mm-hmm,
family has to eat." And I was
mm-hmm,
very polite. I wasn't
mm-hmm,
doing it. So they called the police on me. I mean, I wouldn't do that today. They called the police on me. They tried to arrest me at the store, but I didn't do anything wrong. I was just leaving my name and number. I said, if I ever have to take food, here's my name and number. So you know who took the food and you know how to get me. I'm just not going to starve to death.
mm-hmm,
So um, about a week or a few days later, the police decided to harass me. They drive around me sort of back
mm-hmm,
and forth. And I say, because I thought I had more personal power, you have no authority over me. And they come and
mm-hmm,
they beat me. They take some sticks and they hit me, claim I resisted arrest.
mm-hmm,
And I didn't resist arrest, really. I just
mm-hmm,
wasn't cooperating. I didn't hit them. They claim I hit them. I didn't.
mm-hmm,
But when the judge heard that they tried to arrest me in the store earlier and
mm-hmm,
there was no charge, the judge dismissed it because it became clear the police were harassing me. It
mm-hmm.
became
So,
obvious that I was a victim of the blue line, which
mm-hmm,
is the police stand with each other and they
mm-hmm,
will attack a person who they seen as making trouble. They saw me as making trouble. But I wasn't
mm-hmm,
making trouble. I was desperate. I didn't want my family to starve. So at the stores I run, I would leave my name and number. So I'm not doing it now.
mm-hmm.
But if I have
So,
to, and
so,
that sounds a little crazy.
okay, okay. Let me ask you a personal question.
Yes.
Yeah. How long were you in the financial troubles? And
Well, on and off for about 10 years. I generally wasn't. I was a very hard worker and saved
mhm,
money to buy a house.
mhm,
But then my reputation was damaged by because we were having a home birth. And the second
mhm,
home birth, the police broke down the door and took my wife and me and my
mhm,
firstborn. And
mhm,
they try to claim we were drug addicts. I mean, this is just
mhm,
crazy. Which
mhm,
was we were being intimidated because I was outspoken about the corruption in medicine and politics and the wars the
mhm,
U.S. was doing.
mhm,
So And when I was young, my speech was not always that intelligent. I was somewhat unconventional. They took
Mhm,
advantage of me being a young, person, which is I didn't
mhm,
have much wisdom then.
mhm,
And as a result of that, I was a piano tuner technician. My
mhm,
business fell apart to a large extent, and
mhm,
I didn't have much money.
mhm.
So we were
So,
living,
80s were a very difficult time for you.
yeah, the 80s were very difficult. But I worked my way back up. I went to school. My father in law helped me. I went to a community college, learned electronics, and
Mhm.
got a pretty good paying job. And then I worked my way up to teaching in a college and then in a university as an assistant teacher. I
So
was a very hard worker, but
mhm,
you,
things got
it's a
better in the
spiritual,
90s.
yeah. The life is a spiritual battle. The
Mhm,
only time I've had major crime done to my family has been from
mhm,
the police.
mhm,
The only evil I have
mhm,
seen has been from the government,
mhm,
which is liars,
mhm,
thieves, and criminals.
mhm,
They'll lie about you. They will
mhm,
arrest you. They will lie about you. They will beat you. They will
mhm,
deprive you of food
mhm,
and like toilet paper. I got wounds from hitting hit by sticks on my elbow and my knee. I'm bleeding.
mhm,
And I'm put
mhm,
in a filthy jail cell and not allowed to have toilet paper.
mhm,
And they just do it to try to break you.
mhm.
So yeah, evil is projected mostly by governments.
Yes.
And those of us who've been in court, we've seen judges lie, we've seen police lie, we've seen social service workers lie. These are criminals, and they have the
Mhm,
seal of government to attack people.
mhm,
And this is why war is so bad, because there's no good governments.
mhm,
They're all crooked.
mhm.
So how can you fight for one set of criminals against another set of criminals? I'm
The
not
all of
saying
them are.
Syria is good.
Mhm, mhm,
I'm sure there's abuses in Syria, like there's abuses in Israel, like there's abuses in the United States. In Israel, if you don't want to
mhm,
be a soldier and under orders, they throw you in a mental hospital or a prison.
mhm,
And I think being thrown in a mental hospital in Israel is worse.
mhm.
So people are pushed upon because we're all supposed to bow down to these criminals in power. And you
Just
need a
like
lot of
I
faith.
just like I was talking with a cousin of mine uh, uh, that a few days ago, and he is in Dubai. He is doing a job in Dubai, and he told me that in Dubai, if you don't wear a mask, they will charge you with around about 1,000 plus US dollars for not
Wow.
wearing a mask. For not wearing a mask. On the other hand, one of my other cousin who is also living in the same state, UAE, the whole Arab Emirates in the other state, and he was charged with around about 1,000 plus dollars for not wearing a mask. He went out to have a coffee in the hotel, and then he was charged around about 2 or 3 months ago. So that's how the governments are currently working.
So they're using faulty medicine, wrongful
Mhm,
medicine, because a mask can't protect from
mhm,
viral transmission. They're using
mhm,
faulty medicine to project their organized crime.
mhm,
And the whole world is becoming a police state, where the
mhm,
police feel they can do anything they want to you if you break one of their silly rules.
mhm,
And people like Melanie, myself,
mhm,
yourself, we're
mhm,
speaking up against it, and we're going to win eventually. I mean, in a war, people die. We're
mhm.
in a real war. We're in a
Yes.
war against criminals controlling the government, and these are brutal criminals. But
Mhm,
something protects us a little. There is
mhm,
something that is divine that protects
mhm,
us.
mhm,
But we have to really watch what we say in our behavior, because any excuse can be used to attack good people. It's like
mhm,
Julian Assange. They're holding him in prison for years. Why? They're claiming that he broke U.S. espionage rules. He's
Mm-hmm.
not a U.S. citizen. He's not in the U.S. So the
Mm-hmm.
U.S. laws do not apply to him.
Yeah.
But Britain is so criminal. Britain is cooperating with the criminal U.S. I think
Mm.
Britain's actually more criminal than the U.S. from my
Why?
personal reading of history.
Okay.
Uh,
From the historical background, if you
yeah,
look at the from the imperialism, 400 years of colonialism, and just like slave trades, it's more cruel. Has a more UK has a more cruel history than the US.
yes, particularly
Mhm.
towards the Irish
Mhm.
and for towards China.
Mhm.
The so
Yeah,
what we're
especially
dealing with is
not
we're dealing
not
with
only. What about the East Asian company? They break up the whole fabric of the Indian society, Indian culture through East Asian company.
yeah, yeah. The
In
East Indian
India,
Company was brutal. They were heroin or
Mhm,
opium distributors and wanted a monopoly on
mhm.
opium and selling it to China.
Yes, India had never had any shortage of foods until the arrival of British people. Until they arrived, when they arrived, the shortage of food started because we have a very what do we call it, a very charity society. We still have it that people share food with other people uh, who don't have money. We still do it that in our society. We have a shared based economy, Pakistani, Indian, and the whole subcontinental region. We have a shared economy. Everyone yeah, allocate a small part of money to everyone. Everyone donates a small amount of money to certain fund. They acquire it, they accumulate, and they feed the poor and hungry people of the society. It still goes on. We have a very long history, and when the British came around about 200 or 300 years ago, that's how the shortage of food started, and it has that's how.
Yeah, well, see, the part of the justification by the
Mhm,
empires like Rome and
mhm,
Britain
mhm,
was they accumulated a lot of knowledge in the
mhm,
sciences and in engineering. We
mhm,
discussed that in the sense of the railroads and how Japan could
mhm,
invade Manchuria because they had more technology than the
mhm.
Chinese. We discussed that with the
Yeah,
fall of
in
the
the gold
Ottoman
rush.
Empire, with the
Yes.
British projecting railroads in North Africa and in the Middle East, and then controlling the oil supplies. Basically, England and then United States rose as powers in the Industrial Revolution because they offered engineering education, they offered libraries and control of knowledge. And we see that that's why I started off this with Rome's Pontifical Academy of Sciences.
Mhm,
Um, they had control over Nobel Prize winners, control,
mhm,
influence, whatever you want to call it. They have that influence over some of the major scientists.
mhm,
So we're seeing a terrible rule in nature.
mhm,
The terrible rule in nature is if you're more intelligent, you can abuse the species that's less intelligent.
mhm,
So we're more intelligent than a pig or a sheep or a cow. Humans can abuse and butcher and torture sheep, cattle, because humans are more intelligent. So if there's a more intelligent species than humans,
mhm,
that means they can abuse, torture, and kill humans.
mhm,
That's the law of nature. But what religion is supposed to be is supernatural. We're supposed to rise above natural law with more reason, more mercy, more love. So
mhm,
spirituality is being supernatural. you know.
mhm,
And that's why a lot of religions say don't eat pork,
mhm,
because not only are there diseases in eating pork because a pig is so similar to a human being, pigs are highly intelligent animals.
mhm,
So a lot of religions recognize that and feel it's wrong. And it's so like India not to eat cows. Cows are
mhm,
highly meditative animals,
mhm,
but the West is riding on, if you're more intelligent, you can enslave and destroy less intelligent beings. So the West
mhm,
has accumulated a lot of engineering and technological knowledge and has become very abusive, particularly to
mhm.
third world nations.
Yes. It still goes on. We it okay. The imperialism has finished, but now the technological imperialism is ruling the world. All the first world countries, all the advanced countries, they are keeping the knowledge and they are taking the technological inventions. They are taking it at a hostage. They are not sharing it with the rest of the world. They are
Well, they're
only sharing
sharing
it.
it. I
Yes,
think they're sharing it,
they
but
are,
we
to
have
some
the
extent.
three major groups
Mhm,
of corporate power. We have the
mhm,
medical industrial complex,
mhm,
the
mhm,
military industrial complex, and the big tech, such as Google and
mhm,
Facebook
mhm,
and Microsoft. Those three
mhm,
major corporations that
mhm,
employ a lot of engineers and
yeah,
scientists are
from the third world
abusing the
countries.
world.
Yes.
They're
Yeah.
manipulating and treating much of the world like cattle, which
Mhm,
is wearing the mask. You're treated like cattle. You're
mhm.
treated
No,
as property, where you have to
mhm,
just obey and do what you're told by the master.
mhm. No,
But spirituality, I
my
want to make
point
a really
was,
important point.
okay, okay.
There's two types of knowledge.
Mhm,
There's engineering knowledge or technological knowledge,
mhm,
and there's spiritual knowledge, which is knowledge of your soul,
mhm,
which your soul, which is your self identity, will give you a stronger immunity system. We see this in the Indian tradition, where certain gurus claim, and I think it could be true,
mhm,
that they live to be about 150 years of age, that they
mhm,
only eat about one third or one fourth or even less than the average person, which is
mhm,
there's a spiritual knowledge where you can increase the efficiency of your mind and soul and your
mhm,
harmony with other beings. So, spiritual knowledge is about coming in harmony with other beings, could be animals, trees, the earth. And
mhm,
technological knowledge is more about conquering and controlling beings.
mhm,
So, engineering knowledge is controlling things, spiritual knowledge is coming into more harmony,
mhm,
and they're both important.
mhm.
Technology helps us, and spiritual knowledge helps us. But spiritual
Mhm,
knowledge is really more about being in harmony, reducing suffering in everything.
mhm. Uh, Okay.
So we're now at a crisis. And this was similar.
Mhm,
Remember some Indians writing, particularly in Mexico and southwest United States. When the
mhm,
Spanish conquistadors came in, they left
mhm,
no stone unturned. They were
mhm,
going to conquer with their Catholicism and their mind control every human being. And that's what the current globalists want. They want to vaccinate every human being in the world and not give anyone choice. And if the vaccines kill you, it doesn't matter. You're supposed to take them. And we're dealing with the evil forces, which are the globalists. Yeah, they're
mhm,
evil. They
mhm,
don't want to give anyone freedom. They want to control
mhm,
every human being on the planet. And what I
mhm,
faced and Melanie
mhm,
faced, a lot of people are going to face brutal police forces in some way
mhm.
because
So,
these
in
globalists want to control everybody.
Technology, if we talk about technology, then technology is also doing, uh, uh, it has two ways. Okay, it is also, on the other hand, it is blocking, it is social community standards and blocking your account, your feed, your taking down your walls, your profiles, and it is doing all the things. On the other hand, it is also doing good in terms of connecting people. Just like you and I, we are talking with each other through technology. And if it wasn't for the technology, we wouldn't be able to have this discussion. Technology is doing good, is also technology is doing bad. Technology is good in a way when it connects people, when people share ideas, share knowledge, and that's where it gets the corporations, they get threatened by this fact that why people are sharing knowledge, why people are openly sharing their ideas, their thoughts, their intellectual knowledge, because they want to control the knowledge, the intellect. They want to exploit it for money, for monetary reasons, so they could use it to 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 take to earn some profit, to increase their revenue.
Well, I think money is a flow of energy, which is a flow of
Mhm,
credibility.
mhm,
What that means is the internet was created as
mhm,
an escape valve. Since the
mhm,
propaganda was so thick on television and
mhm,
people had no way to talk back,
mhm,
the internet was an escape valve,
mhm,
which is tyranny creates a certain amount of pressure, which
mhm,
is ultimately the devil or evil, whatever you want to call it. It needs
mhm,
your consent.
mhm,
And it can try to bully, intimidate,
mhm,
persuade to get your consent. And
mhm,
sometimes it can't. It can impose on your being. But
mhm,
ultimately, we have free choice.
mhm,
And and so as a result of that, the system wants to look like it's all powerful. Like I've said since the beginning of the pandemic, the government isn't getting stronger.
mhm,
People are getting weaker. They can
mhm,
barely get out of their house.
mhm,
Why are they getting weaker? Because they've been dumbed down by corrupt science, which is the
mhm,
science they're hearing on television, is
mhm,
by corporations that are interested in greed, making a profit. They're not hearing a debate on television. They're
mhm,
getting dumbed down by organized religion, where they
mhm,
think spirituality is performing rituals and repeating words,
mhm,
where they don't see the importance of truth and study and compassion.
mhm,
So people have been lowered, their morals lowered in terms of sex, their
mhm.
morals lowered in terms of drugs, their morals lower in terms of family obligations. So the government looks stronger because the people have been weakened. And basically, education is the revolution. We have to educate people on how to be healthy, how to say no correctly. I mean, I wish
Mhm,
someone would have taught me when I was young to be more conventional. I wouldn't have as
mhm,
many problems.
mhm,
So then you learn, okay, you have to be more conventional. You have to do more study. I went
mhm,
back to school. I did more study.
mhm,
It's important to study, and you don't hear that much. Important to
mhm.
study history, so you know that what's going on today has gone on many times before.
Yes, it
Nothing new.
history helps you to comprehend the patterns, the trends and patterns, what has been happening, what has been going on for centuries, and that's how, especially in our globalization series, when I studied about ancient Rome's, when I studied about Mongolian Empire, Viking Empire, the Middle Ages, the Renaissance period, and the Industrial Revolution, and the First World War, Second World War, the Cold War, and the end and today's world, it helped me to develop a pattern what has been going on for centuries. And what is the cause of the problem? The problem is awareness. People, most of the people are manipulated by lies, by government propagandas, by by belief, by organized belief. I don't blame them. I used to be very angry, and in my earlier videos, in 2014, 2015, 26, or 2018, I used to be a very in my earlier documentaries, I used to be very critical. I used to uh, enforce that people are doing wrong. Uh, I think I was wrong at that point, that people are doing wrong, but in reality, they are manipulated by the higher ups, by the elite class, by the rulers, those who have the powers. They are uh, they are controlling the world.
Yeah, I agree. Well, what
Mhm,
people need to realize, because
mhm,
it's so hard to see it,
mhm,
goodness, which is honesty, compassion, and intelligence,
mhm,
is attacked. Goodness is
mhm,
attacked. But goodness
mhm,
is attacked because it has power.
mhm,
When you have a soul and
mhm,
you have a moral sense of helping people, of
mhm,
avoiding harm, of studying,
mhm.
because you have to discern, you have to know how to help people. I mean,
Yes.
people who wear the masks think they're
Mhm,
helping people
mhm.
because they don't have enough scientific background to know the mask does more harm than good,
Yes.
which is the mask can't block tiny little viruses. It may
Mhm,
reduce them,
mhm,
but it impairs your expiring of bacteria, of CO2. It
mhm,
impairs more than it helps. And besides, a healthy person shouldn't have to wear a mask. This
yes.
idea that there's all these asymptomatic people is not
Mhm.
medically sound. If you're
Your
infectious,
your lungs
you're
don't
most
get
likely
enough
to have
oxygen.
symptoms.
Your lungs don't get enough oxygen to breathe, to fully
Well, they get
expand,
too,
and then.
well, it's actually a little. It's not they don't get enough oxygen. They
Mhm.
they have a harder time with more CO2, which
Yes.
produces carbonic acid, and
Mhm,
acidosis in the lungs is a very serious issue. And also, they
mhm,
get bacteria growth on their skin for wearing the mask all day. But
mhm,
people have to discern. They have to figure out what is good and what is wrong. If they don't have
mhm,
discernment, love won't do them any good.
mhm,
You have to study enough to know what's the best approach to do something.
mhm,
And the experts are frequently compromised by greed, that they're
mhm,
not making the best decisions. They're making the decisions that agree with whoever signs their paycheck, which are
mhm,
experts are not obligated to the public, they're obligated to those who employ them.
mhm. Yes. And I think we have discussed it in a earlier, around about 3 or 4 months ago, in our earlier videos, very earlier videos, that the corporations, the rulers, they employ intellectuals, the public relations officer, to portray and to speak for them on their behalf, and come up with silly logics to manipulate people.
That's philanthropy. The
Yes,
imperialists,
philanthropy.
oligarchs have set up organizations that they claim are charities while they're
Mm-hmm,
promoting their own policies that get
mm-hmm,
them rich.
yes.
So they promote the market. They create the market with philanthropy and bribery.
Mm-hmm,
Philanthropy is just legalized bribery. If
mm-hmm,
I develop a drug and it's damaging people, I can give to a scientist as a philanthropist $1 million
mm-hmm,
to research it, and then that scientist doesn't want to disagree with me because I gave him $1 million.
yes. And they will stay quiet. They will be quiet
Right. But
after
basically,
getting.
we
Mm-hmm,
need to see philanthropy as legalized bribery,
mm-hmm,
which is the oligarchs set up philanthropy to bribe the universities, to bribe the medical experts. They're using bribery. They're using millions and billions of dollars to bribe people to agree with them.
Yes. And I think it's been around about more than an hour, and we have discussed in detail from we started our discussion from the truth and how you should differentiate it from lies, and lies truth is actually absence of lies. And then we discussed it from the historical perspective, and at the end from the current background, from the historical, and it was a mixture of how people are manipulated in today's world, and how spirituality is the knowledge of truth, is the spirituality is the knowledge of knowing the truth and knowing yourself and studying and understanding the world's knowledge.
The important point,
Mm,
spirituality is getting in harmony with
mhm,
with people and stuff around you and
mhm.
avoiding people who are in conflict with you.
Yes, and
Spirituality is learning to get in harmony with whatever your higher consciousness is. You could call it your ancestors, your gods. You want to
mhm.
get in harmony with higher consciousness, harmony with the people around you, and you want
Mhm.
to avoid those who are disrespectful.
Yes, and most importantly, you said a very important thing. Harmony, spirituality is about having in harmony within yourself, within your society, within your neighbors, within your family, with your families, with your neighbors, and with the people around you. And when you follow this rule, it is definitely going to solve not the whole world, it is going to solve many problems. And that's it for today. If you have any questions, leave it in the comment box below. I'll answer it to you, or Ed will get back to you as soon as he can. Thank you and have a good day, good night, wherever you are. Okay. And